All right. Good morning, Panthers. It's good to see you all at the beginning of a new week. We're going to do some upper back, shoulder, forearm, elbow mobility work today. So hopefully you brought your ball, foam roller, and then a good place to lie. So we're not going to do any pre-tests. Usually we do a pre-test, to measure if the session worked or not. We'll measure a range of motion or a task or something like that. We're not going to do any of that today. We're just going to jump right into it. So I know some of you that are overhead athletes, like baseball, swimming, volleyball, football, different things like that. Those of you that are overhead athletes, I think that this will benefit you quite a bit. So we're going to do a little bit of rolling on this in the foam roller, and then we're going to stay in some static positions for a little bit of time that I think that you guys will enjoy. So go ahead and join me with the lacrosse ball. And we're going to lie down on our mats just like this. And so if you can feel where your shoulder blade is, what I want you to do is I want you to put this in between your spine and your shoulder blade. So top of your shoulder blade, you think about your shoulder blade almost being shaped kind of as like a little triangle. What I want you to do is go to the top of the triangle, the top part of your scapula, right where it meets the spine, and have this arm hang up, but have the forearm kind of relaxed. Don't have your shoulder engaged or anything. I want you to lay all the way down so all your weight is on the ball. And I want you to roll around so you find a sensitive spot. It shouldn't take you long. This is a sensitive area for most people. For me, there's one right there. And then when I get there, what I'm going to do is drop my arm and bring it overhead. Oh. So as you're doing this, when you feel when your arm's going up and you feel your rib cage start to lift. So for me, if I go any further, my rib cage is going to lift up. You see that? So from there, rib cage is in neutral. If I go any further, ribs start to lift up, lower back starts to lift up. Stop before you get there, okay? So for me, I'm just going to stop right there. This is not about cranking into end range positions. It's just about getting a little bit more range of motion in those shoulders and upper back. So rather than your rib cage elevating, what should be happening is just your kind of mid back should just extend just a little bit, just become a little bit straighter as that arm goes overhead. Sorry, I don't want to show you my farmer's tan there. So what we're going to do is about 10 reps. I'm guessing that's probably a little bit more than 10 for me, probably about 12. And then what we're going to do is, again, head down and roll around just a little bit more. I'm going to get kind of in the middle between my scapula and my spine and do the same thing. So get some pressure on there and then go overhead. You'll feel some cracks, pops. Might not hear anything, but you'll feel things kind of slide underneath the ball as that arm moves overhead. That's okay, that's a good thing. And you can do these at whatever speed you want. Just make sure you're breathing through it. Woo. All right, and move down. So, like I said, this shouldn't be difficult to find sensitive spots on. If you're keeping up with your workouts, especially, a lot of conditioning will get this area tight. So a lot of these muscles are postural muscles. They keep you nice and upright while you run. They help your arms stay strong as you're running, as you swing through in your stride. And a lot of these muscles are what help you throw, hit, things like that. So any of you overhead athletes, this will definitely have some sensitive spots to it. And what I want you to do is almost kind of like you're tracing a line around the scapula with the ball. I want you to move your body until you can feel that ball kind of come out to the side a little bit underneath the scapula. For me, it's right there. This one might be the most sensitive for me. So Okay, let's go ahead and do these reps. Oh, you can't say we don't take our own medicine. And here I'm only going to do 5, just because this one's a little bit more potent. I think that's 4. Hope it's 4. And 5. Okay. So what I want you to do now is sit up and take both arms out in front of you. We're going to raise them up overhead, and we're going to see which one gets back further, okay? There's a difference. You see the one that I just did can get back a lot further. This one I still feel a little bit restricted, so what we're going to do is do the same thing on that side. So start with the ball in your right hand, lay down, and here I'm actually going to start a little bit closer to the wall so I can move back as I get the ball down. Okay, so start at that top angle of the scapula, in between scapula and spine. Oh, man. Okay. So get that ball in there, nice and relaxed, and up and overhead. I don't know if this side is necessarily worse, but it just feels terrible. Oh. Keep on breathing through this. Remember, don't move your arm past the point where your rib cage starts to lift up. For me, if I go any further than right here, I'm going to have to arch that lower back, lift that rib cage. So I'm not going to go any further than that. For my workouts, I've been doing a lot of overhead pressing motions, clean and jerk, push jerks, push presses, bench presses. So this area is going to be a little bit tight for me, but it's going to improve my overhead position a ton after doing this. Let's about 10, go just a little bit lower. So right in the middle of the scapula where it meets the spine, head down, arms straight in front of you, and go up. Oh, man. Keep on breathing. Sometimes when you're in painful positions like this, it's tempting to just not breathe. And you might feel a couple of clicks and pops. You might not. Either way is fine as long as it's not painful clicks or pops. All right. And remember, trace that line of your scapula with the ball. Get that ball right underneath it. Head down and up. And on this one, we'll only do 5. 3, 4, and 5. Okay. So go ahead and come up into a nice seated position. Again, arms out in front of you, and we'll go overhead. Mine feels quite a bit better. Other limiting factor to that motion could be these lats in here that are all tightened up. What we're going to do is lie on your side, put your down arm up and over you, and I want you to have your palm down for now. What we're going to do is lower yourself down until that ball is kind of right on your rib cage. So we don't want it to be too far forward. Like if I put the ball right there. It's right on a nerve. There's a nerve pretty close to the surface there. So what I'm going to do is just up a little bit and back. So make sure that it's a little bit more toward the shoulder blade. And just as I rest into it right here, I can already feel those lats are pretty sensitive. So what we're going to do here is palm is down on the ground. And what we're going to do is just rotate that shoulder so that palm is up, palm is down, palm is up, palm is down. So palm is up now, down, up, down, and then rest. And what we're going to do is roll front to back. There we go. As you're rolling front to back, when you bring the ball back, you should kind of hit that outside border of the scapula. That's what you're feeling probably if you hit something hard. As you roll forward, you should hit mostly soft tissue, maybe a little bit into your rib cage. That's okay. What we're going to do is move the ball up more toward the armpit, and you can relax down onto it a little bit more. And we're going to do the same thing, palm down, palm up, palm down, palm up, just like that. And then roll back to front. So hitting that scapula, rolling forward into the armpit, scapula, armpit, just like that. And then if there's any sensitive spots that you're feeling, like for me, you can feel a sensitive spot just a little bit, up into that kind of area of, I guess that would be a little bit behind the armpit, but about level with it. I move my ball into there, and again, just do those rotations and go forward and back. And I can already tell, man, once I'm done with this, my overhead position is going to be much better. I'm going to be able to get my arms over my head, biceps kind of past the ears a little bit better. Hopefully you will be able to as well. It's a little bit of a hard area to get. Just do your best. Worst thing that can happen is it's a little bit tender and you just back off of it. There we go. So move that ball around until you can feel it kind of rubbing over some tender areas. Really sink down into it. All right. And go ahead and switch sides. So I'm just going to flip myself around so you can see the ball decently. Okay. So again, we're going to start down in kind of the meat of the rib cage. Oops. Drop the ball there. There we go. Okay. So, got arm above, palms down. What I want you to do is just palm up, palm down, palm up, palm down. Just rotate through that, making sure to relax into the ball and roll back to front. Oh, this side is tender. Move the ball up a little bit. I'm going to do the same thing. Just go palm up, palm down, up, down, up, down, up, down, and roll front to back. So again, when it's back, should kind of kiss that outside border of the scapula. When it's forward, should be just below the armpit. So these are just small motions, but I'm telling you, it's going to make a big difference when you go to play. So this is a great mobilization to do right before practice, especially again, if you are one of those overhead athletes. So getting into those positions for strokes like freestyle, butterfly, you know, if you're a swimmer, and then getting your arm cocked all the way back for a baseball pitch, your arm back for a hit in volleyball, throws in football, things like that, overhead to receive the ball in football. Even those of you that are soccer players, this will benefit your throw-ins. I'm serious. I mean, the further back you can get your arms unrestricted, the more powerful your throw-in's going to be. So spend a little bit of time just noodling around up in this area right behind your armpit. Shouldn't be in the armpit necessarily, although if that's where you're finding sensitive spots, then be my guess there is some muscle in there. Triceps go up into the armpit a little bit, your lats, some of your rotator cuff. So if you find some sensitive spots in your armpit, don't be too surprised. I know I do. So I've got my palm down and the ball is pretty much in my armpit, and there definitely are some sensitive spots. So don't be shy about that. Honestly, you know, it's the type of thing that you should probably get used to a little bit if you're an overhead athlete. Doing some shoulder care is going to involve getting into some weird places like this. So have that ball go back and forth. All right. So now let's go ahead and face this direction. And again, we'll retest that position. So let's do arms straight out in front of you and try and go overhead. For me, I can get biceps behind ears, hopefully, on both sides. So focus on squeezing those shoulder blades together, and what you should feel is a kind of a mild stretch through here, okay? So again, arms out in front of you, and go up, just like that. Okay, so what we're gonna do now is, let me move my computer so you can see what I'm doing a little bit better. So I've got like a nightstand right here. If you've got a chair, that'll work too. What we're going to do is get some of those areas kind of right back here in the triceps, maybe a little bit into that rotator cuff a little bit as well. So go ahead and put the ball on the table, and then I'm just going to stabilize with one hand, get those triceps on there, and go ahead and roll out with your elbow extended. So elbow should be straight. Go around just like that. When you find a sensitive spot, pause. For me, there's one right there. And just do repetitions of this. Okay, and it can help to have your arm in different angles. Like when I've got my palm down here, it kind of takes some slack out of those inner triceps. And as I get up into the shoulder, I feel some tender spots, and I can just go in and out. Oh. There we go. So the further up toward the armpit you get to the top of the medial head of the triceps. It's the long head. And that one carries quite a bit of tension around in there. So to roll over that a little bit. And then I'll switch sides. So stabilize, ball there, get the triceps on there. There you go. And roll back and forth, just hunting for sensitive spots. If you're not finding any, that's really fine. Some of you that don't use your arms much, I'm thinking about runners, soccer players, some of the sports that just, are more lower body dominant, you might not really find much in here, and that's totally fine. It's still going to be beneficial for you. So just because you don't feel any tender spots doesn't mean that it's not beneficial. like I said, improving arm swing for you runners, those that are involved in a lot of running for their sport. You know, this can be really beneficial for you. So keep on finding those tender spots. For me, I'm going to move up into the armpit a little bit and get that tricep head. All right. And I got that all unglued, feeling good. So what we're going to do now is go ahead and put your nightstand, your chair, whatever you've got right in front of you. Let me move mine over here so you can see things a little bit better. So what I'm going to do is put the ball down, and I'm going to put my elbow into a bent position just like this. Go ahead and move yourself down so that your elbow is on the chair. And I've got one hand, I've got this other hand down on the floor. And what I want you to do is keep your fingertips touching that shoulder and go down into a stretch, just like this. You should feel it in maybe your elbow, probably quite a bit in your shoulder. Do those triceps, maybe back into the shoulder blade a little, into the lats. And so as you're in this position, go ahead and move yourself into a kind of bent torso position. So you're almost kind of stretching toward the side of the arm that's up. So just bend yourself over that direction. That should intensify the stretch a little bit. Remember to keep those fingers touching the shoulder. And come up out of that. And we'll do the other side. So again, fingers touching shoulder, just like that. Bring yourself down. And what you're using the chair, or in my case, a nightstand for, is just to add a little bit of extra torque to this stretch. So you're using it as leverage to open that shoulder up. All right. Getting into that. Deltoid, lat, tricep. Okay. All right, we're all done with that. Go ahead and sit down next to the nightstand or chair, whatever you've got. What we're going to do now is we're going to roll out some of the forearms. So again, like I talked about, the overhead athletes, especially those that are throwing a ball, especially baseball, softball players, when you throw that ball, your forearm gets pretty tight because you're using your fingers to kind of flick that ball through. So these can get really, really tight. Those of you that have had Tommy John surgery, this will feel great for. So go ahead and roll, starting with the ball up toward that inside elbow bone. So there's a band of tissue right through here, bottom part of that elbow, that I want you to focus on. So I think it's best if you have your palm kind of facing, you know, like thumb is straight up kind of deal. And go ahead and roll around on that little knot of tissue. And for me, I feel a sensitive spot right there. So what I'm going to do is take that opposite hand on the elbow, push down, and then rev the motorcycle. Just like that. So what that's doing is it's pulling those tissues, those flexor tissues that are on the bottom side of my arm right now, it's pulling those flexor tissues over the ball and allowing those muscles to release. And do a few reps of that, maybe 7 to 10, and keep on rolling. So if you want to roll a little bit onto the inside part of the elbow, right through there. Again, it's mostly just wherever you find stiffness is fair game. So for me, there's quite a bit right there, right from doing pull-ups the other day. So again, put some pressure in there, rev the motorcycle. Now I'm feeling this. Woo. All right, and move down into the bottom part of your forearm. And as you get toward the wrist, that's right where that carpal tunnel is. So make sure that you're not compressing that area too much. As we roll around here, you might feel a couple little zings as we get over nerves and things like that. So put some pressure on there if you're not feeling any of those. If you are, go ahead and just stick with rolling. Don't do any extra pressure. So hand down to create some pressure, and then forearm up, just like that. And kind of shake that out a little bit. Might be feeling some of that numbness in your fingers. Probably not a big deal. So go ahead and switch. On the other side, I'm just moving my nightstand so you all can still see what I'm doing here. So again, that inner elbow bone, start there and kind of work your way down, okay? So it's best to do it with a bent elbow, don't do it with a straight elbow. If you're going through that area, for me, there's a sensitive spot right there. Apply some extra pressure and rev the motorcycle. There we go. And keep on rolling. As we get into the inside part of the forearm, make sure that you're rotating your hand so that it's more like thumb down. So what body work is it's just finding the right angles to get into the tissues that are bothering you. Finding the right angles and applying the right pressure. So some areas, a lacrosse ball works great, like all the areas we've covered today, a lacrosse ball works great. Other areas, a foam roller is going to suit you much better. So things like the quads, the calves, foam roller will suit you a lot better because it's bigger muscle groups and things like that. Even for the lats that we covered with the ball, that's one of those tissues where it's like, it's a large muscle, but it's not a thick muscle, you know? Some areas of it are a little bit thicker, and that's better to do with the foam roller. Other areas are better to do with the lacrosse ball. So it's just about kind of figuring out what feels best for your body. So as we get down into the lower forearm, kind of by the wrist, again, make sure that you're not feeling any zings or zaps from compressing those nerves in the carpal tunnel. Once we get a little closer, go ahead and apply some pressure if you're good with that. And do maybe 5 reps here, revving the motorcycle. And we're all done there, okay? Move my computer again so that you all can see what I'm doing. So last thing we're gonna do is down on the mat, do tops of the foot touching the mat. And what we're gonna do is little child's pose, just like that. But I want you to bend out to the side. So we'll start with the right side, stretching out all that stuff that we worked on earlier. Hold that for a little bit and then switch sides. We'll do that around twice. So after we're done with this one, we'll go back to the right side. So when I stretch to the left, I feel it in the right. When I stretch to the right, I feel it in the left. And switch. And last one we're going to do before we do some of that overhead work, not work, but test, I guess, is, sorry, got to take my watch off for this one. So if you're wearing a watch, make sure you take it off so that there's nothing compressing your wrist or forearm. What I want you to do is hands out to the side. Go ahead and put hands on the floor just like that. And what I want you to do is put your body weight over to one side, elbows straight. Okay, so you're not bending it just yet. And then over to that other side. And back over to the other side. As you're doing the stretch, you should feel it down in the wrist a little bit. So lean over to each side, just like that. And then what we're gonna do is, rather than rocking our whole body weight over to one side or the other, what we're gonna do is point those fingers out, rotate your elbow so that your elbow is facing the same direction as your fingers. What I want you to do is bend that elbow. And as you do that, you can lean your body weight over a little bit. You should feel that in the wrist, maybe a little bit in the thumb. We'll do the same thing over here. Fingers out, elbow pointed out, and give it a little bend. And you should feel that all through here. Those of you that have ever fractured your wrists might remember this one from rehab. If you did your rehab. Yeah, stretch over to that other side. And we are done, okay? So get into this position right here. And again, we'll just try the arms overhead. So arms out in front of you, just like this, thumbs up, and move up overhead. For me, mine looks much better. Hopefully yours does as well. When I started, right arm could get past the ear, left arm could not. Left arm was stopping about here. But after a little bit of work, you can get it back a little bit further. So hopefully that was beneficial for you, and let us know, as always, if you have any questions, okay? We'll talk to you later.